bubonic plague, the cause of around 10 million deaths in India between 1896 and 1930. The Bombay presidency was the hardest hit, with the cities of Pune and especially Bombay bearing the brunt of it. And while scholars have discussed this period from the standpoint of the history of medicine and public healthcare, few have discussed how the plague contributed to the consolidation of upper caste-led conservative politics in Western India. To understand this, we need to go back a bit further into the 1800s. During this time, the Marathi public sphere had been dominated by an educated Brahmin middle class and had taken on strong nationalistic overtones. But there was also a growing discontent which was crystallizing around the category of non-Brahmin that sought social reform. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule and Bal Gangadhar Tilak best represent the two ideological camps that emerged. Phule was a radical anti-caste social reformer who criticized the use of caste by Brahmins to achieve the subjugation of non-Brahmins and women. He established the Satyashodhak Samaj that became a platform for non-Brahmins, peasants, women and the untouchables to air their grievances. Jyotirao, together with his wife Savitri Bai, also made phenomenal contributions to women's education. They started the first school for girls and even advocated for the rights of widows. After Phule's death in 1890, the leadership of the Samaj was taken over by Savitri Bai and two of his colleagues, Narayan Meghaji Lokhande and Krishnarao Bhalekar. Together they continued the work of the Samaj and extended its reach to Bombay and the neighbouring countryside. Tilak, on the other hand, was a nationalist and a Hindu revivalist. He was widely known for his passionate advocacy of conservative causes in his newspapers Kesari and Maratha. At this time, the nationalists of Pune particularly centered their focus on the different strategies to mobilize the masses against colonialism, but also against Muslims and social reform. Social reformers and non-Brahmin activists were regularly criticized in the nationalist periodicals and public festivals. The Ganesh festival and Shiv Jayanti started by Tilak soon became platforms to vent against social reforms and non-Brahmin activists. The growing discontent with colonial rule came to a head in the sensational murder of the British Plague Commissioner of Pune, Walter Rand, in July 1897. Rand had become infamous for his heavy-handed approach in dealing with the plague. The Jafikar brothers who assassinated Rand were also known for their hostility towards social reforms, so Rand's murder was not just a random nationalist act against repressive colonial policies, but rather an indication of a particular kind of political discourse gaining substantial strength in the garb of nationalism. Tilak had spoken out strongly against the colonial government's handling of the plague in his newspaper Kesari, and after the assassination of the Plague Commissioner, he was arrested and tried for sedition. The trial propelled him to fame, and circulation of his newspapers more than doubled. While the plague played a big part in boosting conservative nationalism, it dealt a severe blow to the non-Brahmin movement and the Satyashodhak Samaj, even claiming the lives of two of its leaders, Savitri Bai and Lokhande, in 1897. The mass migration of people fearing the plague also disrupted the functioning of the Samaj. In addition to the plague, its supporters in the countryside also suffered the lethal wrath of famine. The weakening of the Satyashodhak Samaj amongst these crises created a vacuum that was filled by Brahmin-dominated nationalist organizations like the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha that came to represent the grievances of rural society. It was only in the 1920s and through the incredible efforts of Chhatrapati Shahu of Kolhapur that the non-Brahmin movement began to pick up steam once again. The plague also had a role to play in this revival through the changes in the urban infrastructure that were initiated by the colonial state in response to the epidemic. The residential apartments constructed by the Bombay City Improvement Trust in the aftermath of the plague provided fertile ground for strong working class and Dalit activism. The emergence of organized Dalit politics under B.R. Ambedkar's leadership signaled the arrival of a new political force in provincial and national politics.